Hello, Rick here again, and this time looking into one of the Star Trek universe's most unlikely technologies, the transporter. Despite its complexity, many spacefaring species develop the device at some time, and its convenient nature means that the knowledge proliferates until it's an integral part of society. Exactly how the device works is only alluded to in canon, like warp drive, but we can create a general process to look at its limitations. Whether from a planet or a starship, transport needs a transporter room to complete. Targeting scanners locate the desired object through a variety of keying in factors. In Starfleet, it's common for their comm badges or communicators to contain a locator device for easy target acquisition. The second common way is to locate a life sign, locking on to the matter around it, but with fine enough sensors, such as those found on an Intrepid-class starship, you can even target chemical elements such as the calcium of a person's skeletal structure. When the command is given to initiate transport from a transporter room, the lock is solidified and the entire being, and others nearby in the case of a multiple person transport, has its entire molecular structure read with the molecular imaging scanners down to a quantum level. In order to facilitate this as safely as possible, an annular confinement beam is first activated, preventing the target creature or object from moving. Although we have seen multiple instances in the shows of people moving pre and even mid-transport. So it's possible to beam without it, just probably not as safe. And in these cases, momentum may even be preserved. The confinement beam is not force field in strength, but it can deflect glancing energies. The second function of the ACB is to maintain the entirety of a person's form within the beam, so that, well, all their pieces are accounted for. When the pattern is completed and the hold established, the images of the transporter system create a memory file of the pattern, which is stored in the main computer for the sake of logging the transport and the person's quantum signature. This is where a wide-bank quark manipulation field in the transition coils begin to literally disassemble the entire structure of the transporting creature at a subatomic level. This is the bit that transportophobes point to as the reason they hate the idea, and well, yeah, being torn apart atom by atom, despite being painless, is not a pleasant concept and raises all sorts of existential questions about the transporter. The disassembled person is now referred to as simply a matter stream, and is then held in a particle buffer until the computer ensures that the target location and the transporter are in sync and no miscalculations are going to occur. It's also worth mentioning that after every step, the transporter conducts safety checks to ensure that nothing goes wrong and constantly compares the matter stream to the scans it took at the start to ensure there's no variations. This is where the pattern is duplicated as a temporary backup in case things go wrong, and the pattern itself usually can be maintained for 420 seconds before fluctuations cause degradations. After this, the pattern itself may become damaged and the chances of completing the transport successfully drop exponentially, unless you're Montgomery Scott. From here, however, some changes can be manually wrought to the matter stream, if the transporter is advanced enough. For example, if contaminants are found, say the person has picked up a pathogen or a parasite that is within the computer's database, the molecules that make up that pathogen can be removed and stored in quarantine. This rules out many contaminants that away teams might pick up, but it's not a foolproof method. The transporters always err on the side of caution and will not remove something too ingrained with the person's physiology, in case it makes a mistake, and of course it has little chance of detecting something it has never encountered before. This is why it flags such issues for the transporter chief to look at mid-transport, and many still slip by unaccounted for. Again, sufficiently advanced transporters can even remove selected molecules such as components from weapons to render them inert, or, yes, because you're probably thinking it, someone's clothing. Just as with the quarantine procedures, the transporter will always prioritise a safe trip over security concerns, so removing things from the matter stream is seldom done. Think about it, it's completely possible to just remove the iron molecules present in a bat'leth, but then what if it scoops out a bit too much and the transporting creature ends up iron deficiency anemic? After the target destination has been checked again, the matter stream is emptied from the buffers and directed to the emitters on the hull of a starship, which are powerful energy transmitters. First up, on the ground, the target zone is contained within its own annular confinement beam, to filter out molecules and hazards so that the beaming point is free of material contamination. Then the matter stream is sent to that destination as a signal. The range on transporters varies substantially on a variety of circumstances, such as the power and sophistication of the transporter, natural background radiation, energy fields, and the amount of matter being transported. We've seen examples of emergency transporters being able to beam out dozens, if not hundreds of people at a time, and the trade-off here is the range. Using a Galaxy class as an example, its standard transporters had a safe operating range, in ideal conditions, for up to 6 people, of 40,000 kilometres. However, its emergency beaming procedure expanded this to dozens at a time, but only at 15,000 kilometres. The matter stream arrives in the ACP zone of the target area, and then the computer uses its recorded quantum image to reassemble the matter in the schematic it compiled of the transporting creature. When the transported creature is reassembled, the confinement beam deactivates, providing it was active in the first place, and the individual is free to move away from the beaming site. The whole process takes around 5 seconds to complete. Other limiting factors to the transport can be compensated for, but may cause strange effects, and some problems, which I'll touch on in another video. These few are just the ones that are seldom problems and are often dealt with. First up, beaming from moving target to target is tricky, as the computer needs to safely align and maintain targeting equilibrium for 5 seconds. Beaming at warp is most successful when both vessels are travelling at the same speed, and heading, for example. Just as with deactivating the confinement beam to establish faster transport, however, the risk of complications rises with beaming to a moving target. Transporting from a vessel entering warp also requires that the transporters begin reassembly of the pattern nearby to the desired landing zone, so that when space bends due to the warp effect, the matter stream is thrown to the correct location. This can be seen in Season 2 of TNG The Schizoid Man. Beaming from site to site is also possible, and used to be far riskier. However, as transporters improved, this becomes more common. The only real difference here is that a person is not rematerialised on a transporter pad, and instead the matter stream is bounced back to a new location. Transporters are, of course, famously limited by deflector shielding, except when the plot demands it's not. This is simply because starship shields do exactly what they're supposed to do. Not only does it reflect energy and highly energised streams of matter, like say a phaser or a matter stream, but many also prevent an active scan, which means no accurate targeting data. This last part is also the reason why scattering fields are so effective at preventing transport. Whether natural or artificial, they prevent targeting systems from accurately creating a safe lock. A dampening field has a similar effect too, but for different reasons. This is a field that drains energy, therefore the matter stream would simply be sapped of its power. But even most of these issues can be overcome. Beaming through shielding is supposedly impossible, but I guess a powerful enough force could overwhelm that, and opening a hole for half a second to allow a matter stream in would also work, although that would require a lot of coordination. The other issues can be addressed with things like transport pattern enhancers that clarify the resolution of scans within the area, cutting through interference, or the similar transporter tags. Of course, this is why Starfleet's away teams wear the previously mentioned comm badges, to allow for an easier lock. It's mentioned occasionally in extra-canonical lore that Starfleet comm badges contain very small transport inhibitors, which refract a transporter lock and prevents an enemy vessel from simply beaming away a Starfleet crew. Presumably, this sort of technology is common on vessels and answers the age-old issue of why don't they just teleport the bad guys away or something? When this does happen, usually there's a lot of exempting jargon around it. So, There you go, this covers how transporters work in Star Trek. I will be making another part to this exploring why transporters so often don't work in Star Trek, and the problems that can occur. Lastly, I'll just mention the old argument of, does a transporter kill you? In reality, yes it would. But it's science fiction, so in this case I'm going to assume that the energy field that makes up you is also preserved and transmitted along with the simple matter. Otherwise you'd reappear with no molecular vibration, no neural energy, nothing. You'd be dead, 0 kelvins, altered matter, inert. Proof that the energy itself is maintained and transported can be seen in the conservation of momentum when someone reappears mid-fall, for example. But then, wouldn't the whole point of the confinement beam be negated if it ceases all subatomic movement? I'm going to stop thinking too deeply into this, because it won't make sense. So, thanks for watching this video on transporters. I've been Rick, and part 2 will be out next week, I hope. So until then, thanks again, and goodbye.